Hey guys, so we're 6 months in on this barn dominium build, and we're up to the point where I'm really, to be honest, dreading this next part of the build. We are going to attempt to build a breezeway roof that connects the garage and house, and it involves dismantling some of the wall on the garage, and I'm really not looking forward to that. So let me show you what we have planned, some hieroglyphics I have drawn out, and we'll see if this thing's gonna work. If you're new to the build, we'll kind of lay things out here. We have the garage finished. That build is done, complete. We're working on the house. We've been 6 months in on the house. We have pretty much everything dried in, and I'm focusing on this section right here. We wanna build this roof to connect the two so we have a covered breezeway to go from the garage to the house. And there's not a lot of detail in these prints. Let me show you what I do have, and then I'll show you what I'm thinking. This page is the roof layout, rafter layout, and all I have for this little breezeway section here is the details showing a 2x6 rafters at 48 on center with a max span of 6 foot 6 inches, and then a ridge board, a 2x10 ridge board at the top. That's all the details I have for that roof, so the rest is kind of up to me. Probably safe to say that if you're gonna try your own DIY build, you're probably gonna run into the same thing. Your prints aren't gonna tell you where every nail and screw and brace needs to go. You have to kind of figure some of that out on your own. And this part of the build, there's a couple of limitations in there that I need to abide by for code. But a lot of this I have to come up with on my own. And I want it to kind of match with the front porches. If you haven't followed along on the build, we built some timber frame porches, and those really turned out nice. And I want to tie this into those porches so it kind of flows and looks good. Looks like it fits on the building. But we have an 8 foot span in between the garage and house. And one of the cool things with the structural engineer that I used, he builds in some consulting time with the fees that you pay for the blueprints. So I can always call him up and pick his brain on, hey, I'm thinking about building it this way. Is that okay? And he'll give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down and say, hey, instead of doing this, why don't you do this type of thing? So we've done that. I think I have a good plan on how this is gonna work. I have some materials. I wanna show you what we're using to structurally build this roof system over the breezeway and how we're gonna tie it into the building. So let's get into that. Here's some of the materials we're using to do this build. These are Simpson strong tie brackets. These are hidden fastener brackets to use for our timbers. We're using 6x10 timbers, which nominally will be 5.5 by 9.5. And these will face mount on the wall of the garage and the house, and the timbers will set down in these, and that'll hold our timbers. We're going to connect them to the house with these Simpson strong tie screws. These are the SD connector screws, 2.5 inches because we're going into our girt boards. And this is where I wasn't 100% sure on structurally if this was going to be okay, so I had to call the engineer and told him what I was doing, and he gave me the thumbs up on this. So we're using 2.5 inch screws. This will go through the bracket, the 7/16 OSB, and then the 1.5 2x6s that are up there. And then we're going to tie the timbers to the brackets with these outdoor accent accessories, structural wood screws, 3.5 inches. Here's the area we're working with here. We want to put the breezeway over these two doors, and we want to stay underneath the overhang. I think if we get into the roof on the garage, it's really going to complicate things and make things messy, and I don't want to have to take steel off the roof. But you can see all these panels are going to have to be stripped off, probably up to that one, in order to tie these in. And I've put my level up there, and I have a max height for my peak on this roof system because I want to stay below the overhang here on the garage. So we've marked that out, and then I've marked, I want to go 6 feet wide here on the bottom side of it. That'll give us almost 2 feet on either side of the door here. It's a 3-foot door, and with a 1.5 feet beyond that, and then a 6-inch overhang beyond the timbers, I think we'll be in good shape. And I've kind of drawn out, you can see the little triangle there. I've drawn out what I think is going to be approximately where the roof line will be. Actually be a little bit above that because our 6x10s are going to stick up and the rafters are going to sit on top of that. I've also marked out all of the framing behind the sheathing. So I know this seam right here, there's a 2x6 behind that and there's a 2x10 up top. I've marked all those and I've marked where I want to put our brackets. So let's go ahead and hang some brackets on these walls and see what they look like. So all we're doing here is a reference line putting up here so I can get my bracket up straight. And we have the top and bottom marked here. So I'm just gonna set this pretty much right on the bottom. And I want to make sure when we put these on that the timber is going to slide in there. So I'm going to make sure we're at 5.5 on the top, 5.5 on the bottom, because these do move just a little bit. So make sure you got enough room, which it looks like we're good. And that actually makes that right on the money. Perfect there. Here's what I came up with, guys. I wanted to place this as low as I could on this 2x10 that's back here. So we're down as far as we can go. The ridge board is going to stick up. It's a 2x10, so it's going to stick up 9.25. So we're up to here. So if I measure where my ceiling is, where the top of these beams are gonna sit, we are 17.5 inches roughly, very close to 17.5. Now I'm figuring on the rafter planing right in to the side of this 2x10, and then it will have to be notched here, a bird mouth cut, so it sits down on this and we'll drive a timber lock screw down in. So I'm counting on an 1.5 inch notch for this to sit on that timber. And by doing that, I kind of brought everything down. It should be pretty close to a 612. We'll see when we get things up here what it actually measures, but it should be pretty close. And that'll match the pitch on the porches and the garage. 412 was just gonna be too low and keep this bracket off that 2x10, and I didn't want to have to put more studding into the wall. So we have a 2x10 carrying this, and then a 2x6 with a post right here, and then that corner post over there to carry the load here. So we should be pretty good. Now the next thing is going to be taking the steel off on the garage and getting these things square and level across from all these brackets. Well, I hope you all are ready for this, because I'm not. Might cry a little bit. If you're new to the channel and didn't follow along on the garage build, the steel siding you can lay left to right or right to left. I knew I was going to have to start peeling this back off to do this roof section, so I laid this side left to right, which allows me to start down here and peel things back. A little bit of planning and forethought went into that. This corner piece worked out really well. That the C-channel behind it was done in sections. I just happened to do that because the clips, I needed to make room for the clips, but it made taking this corner piece off a little bit easier, but nonetheless, it's a pretty good forearm workout. You're really working your fingers and trying to get this stuff peeled off. Some carpenter bees, it looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 carpenter bees in there. And we have the corner piece off. Now it's time to start stripping the side off. You can kind of see how I did these corners here. I cut them in sections because I had to get the clips through, and then I back flashed this and put some sealant on there, and then I pop riveted this last rib into the C-channel. So now I'm gonna have to take all these pop rivets off. So I'll just drill them out here, and then the small piece should come off, and then I can get the rest of the panels off all the way down. Here we go. The C-channel behind your corner trim piece is just like a J-channel trim piece, except the color is on the inside. And the last panel, I had to rip off the rib and hand bend it over and pop riveted it to the C-channel. So now I have to drill all those out. There's probably 6 to 8 pop rivets in there to drill out. And it was way more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I'm not a metal worker by trade, but yeah, I had some difficulty drilling those things out. But we got them out nonetheless and started peeling the panels off as soon as the corner piece was done. These clips on here, if you didn't watch the install video, these are removable, but I'm gonna go ahead and leave them on there. And then I'm gonna label the back of my panel so I know this is gonna be number 1 because it's the last panel. I'm not exactly sure how many I'm gonna have to take off, but we'll label these and put them inside. Taking these panels off when there's nothing to work around, no trim pieces, is really super easy. You just take those screws out and the panels just kind of clip in to one another. When I got up to the door, that's where the difficulty began, because that panel has to slide to the left to come out of that hem and then slide back to the right over top of that hem to pull the panel out. And that's how all the panels above that door worked out. So I really struggled with this one just because the leg, that little narrow piece coming down, was stopping me from being able to slide it over. So I had to get a little creative and use some wood wedges to work that steel out and around that hem, but eventually I got it out. Knew that was going to be a tough one, but I think we're a little bit smoother sailing from now on. We'll see. What makes these panels tricky to get out is the double J. There's a J-channel trim piece over the door and a J-channel trim piece underneath the soffit. So working these panels out without being able to get them outside that J was a little bit difficult. This isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. Getting around the door with a double J-channel, both at the top and the bottom, is a little bit difficult, but you just have to kind of bend that metal around and pop it up over the hem. It's a little bit difficult, but we're on the back side now. I think this next one will come out pretty easy, and I think I'm gonna have to take one more out, which is gonna detail taking this light off, which is gonna suck, but it is what it is. So let's get this finished up, and then it's almost lunchtime. Well, we're down to the last 3 panels that have to come off, and to get the next 2 off, I had to take the light down, which wasn't a big deal. I just had to undo a couple of screws, take the silicone off around the light, and then secure the wiring. The big headache was the electrical box. The tabs on that were over top the steel panels, so I had to work that steel panel around the box after I loosened it up. Not a big deal. Got that panel off, and then the last panel was pretty easy. There was nothing to work around. So glad this portion is done and I didn't damage anything. Okay, haven't cried yet. We have enough off, I think, to get this roof done. Now I'm really excited to get this going. We're gonna get the brackets put up after lunch, and it's gonna be a little bit tricky because I need to get it square and straight coming off this other side. So it'll be interesting. Stay tuned for that. We'll be right back after lunch. You can see I'm shooting a laser up the door frame. I've squared it off, so the laser is sitting this way square in the door frame, and then I have the top laser, I don't know if you can see that, shooting in the middle, exactly in the middle of this door frame, and then over to the other side over there. And you probably can't see that, but the middle pencil mark on the door there, I'm off probably about 3/16 is what it looks like. So I'm pretty close, I think, to being square when I set these doors. Again, this door frame could be off just a little bit, not completely square with the garage. There's a lot of variables that go into this, but I think we're pretty close. I'm happy with that. 3/16. I'm gonna go ahead and use that laser line, mark it, and then come over 3 feet on each side so I can get my distance horizontally, and then I'll use my 8-foot level, set them in the bracket on the house, and place the bracket vertically on the garage, and that should get me pretty close. Okay, there's my horizontal marks. Now vertically we have to get them set level with those other brackets. That should be pretty easy. Okay, I think we got it. Perfect. All right. Now to ensure. Beautiful. All right, that's it for the brackets. Time to put some timbers in. For those that aren't subscribed to the channel or maybe not follow along on all my videos, the channel is all about doing things yourself. I'm building my own barn dominium, and we're getting ready today to cut these timbers to start our Breezeway roof build. And while it'd be nice to have one of those big timber saws and make one pass through that, I don't have the funds to just go out and buy a tool for a couple of uses, especially an expensive one like that. So I'm gonna try to cut this timber with this saw. It's just a normal 7 1/4 blade. So I'm not gonna be able to cut all the way through this. I'm gonna have to cut from both sides and then finish it off with a hand saw. And while this end's not gonna be visible because it's sitting down into those U brackets that I put up, I still want to challenge myself here and try to get a good look on the end, a good, nice, flush cut. And I need to be about 1/8 of an inch under 8 feet, and this timber is 1/4 inch over 8 feet. So I need to cut a little bit off. I've already checked my blade to make sure that it's square, and it looks, actually it's off just a smidgen. So let's tip it a little bit. Not too bad, not too bad. Just a slight lip there. If you haven't watched our timber frame porch video, highly encourage you to do that if you like working with wood. This is Heritage Natural Finish Oil, exterior grade with UV protectant. And I really, really like this stuff. It goes on wet. You don't have to sand anything. When you apply additional coats, it soaks into the wood, and then after a couple of days, after you get enough soaked into the wood, it almost forms like a polyurethane finish on the exterior side of the wood to protect it. It's really cool. The first couple of coats with these timbers really soaks it in, so you don't get that finish on the outside, but my understanding is it's seeping into these pores, soaking in, and then it's hardening on the inside. Once we got 2 coats of that oil on these timbers and they sat for a couple of hours, let that stuff soak in, it was time to put them in, and I was a little bit nervous here. I didn't have a whole lot of room. That timber was cut pretty close to the exact length, and I didn't want to get it wedged in between the buildings there. But this went pretty easy. Just getting it on there and dropping it down into those U-brackets was pretty simple, actually. So I'm glad that's done. They look good, and we can move on to the ridge board next and get this roof built. All right, what I'm doing now is setting my ridge board. We're going to set our bracket here and get our 2x10 set. Okay, so that's our bottom of our bracket. Should be pretty easy here. I already have the line to get it centered marked. So all we have to do is mount this bracket. There's a 2x10 behind this, so we got plenty of meat to get this thing set. Right, now we're going to get a measurement here. Cut our 2x10. 95 3/4. This may be kind of difficult to get in there. Let's see. All right, so that wraps up setting these beams and the ridge board. I'm gonna let these things sit overnight to soak up that oil before I put anything on top of them. And then tomorrow we'll get building on the rafters, which ought to be pretty fun with angled cuts. That's always a challenge. So I hope you stick around for that. We'll get this roof on, get this thing finished up, and get my siding put back on, and I'll feel much better. Thanks for tuning in today and hanging out with me till the end of the video. I truly appreciate you guys that's been following along on the build. It really gives me motivation when you give me the thumbs up and leave comments, ask questions, and hopefully it helps you ultimately on your build. That's the whole goal behind this channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.